Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rakhma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
The truth that is rooted within we. It's an awesome thing to recognize that you were born of truth and born in truth. And welcome to MindShifters Radio, where we're here to support you in being in full contact with that truth and living as though that truth in you really counts in the world. You know, we kind of live in a world that says, oh my goodness, think for yourself. Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? So we're here to support you actually tapping in and recognizing the genius that is within you. And every expert talking head on the television set doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart. And what we're here to support you in is uncovering totally and completely your best interests. And your best interests lie within you. You're the only one who can bring them forward. You're the only one who can tell you what they are. MindShifters Radio is about shifting into the true mind of a human being, out of the programmed mind based in the world's hostilities and fears, the manipulations that try to keep us on track with what someone else wants for us. And we're celebrating, and I've actually lost track of the days at this point. I believe we're probably into about day, goodness, I don't know, with the weekend having just gone by, I've lost track. But anyway, the important point is we're celebrating Memorial Day once again, every day for the rest of eternity on this show. We're going to invite you to celebrate Memorial Day with us. It was 48 or 49 days ago that Memorial Day went by, and many Americans didn't even really realize, I think, at least from some I've spoken to, what it really is all about. The old-timers, of course, know, but many people, it's a day off, a day to get drunk and have a party. And that really isn't the idea of Memorial Day. And our way of celebrating is to invite you and everybody that you know to be willing to move in the direction of removing Day 50. Jeanie just informed me. She keeps track of these things. Thank you, sweetie. Day 50 of our celebration of Memorial Day. And you know, the root cause of war is hostility and fear, and one of its expressions, greed. And what we're looking to do is to invite everyone to take the level of responsibility that removes the hostilities and fears that keep us in conflict, that keep us wanting to blame somebody else. And by taking personal responsibility and removing that from the planet, we start to open a different kind of space. And if you don't know how to remove those things that would keep you in hostility or fear, you could go to our website. There's actually several free downloads. You can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? There are several videos, audios. But in particular, if you look on the right-hand side of the home page, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. Actually, that is on every page, the way Jeanie's reset the site. So you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. If you click on that link and look at the first 3 links under that section, you'll see Chapter 24 from my book. That's an explanation of the forgiveness process. And in our culture, we've been taught a backward idea about forgiveness. We've been taught, you know, I've got pain inside of me that is caused by you. It's all your fault, but it's okay. I'll forgive you. And, of course, that does nothing to do with changing the pain that's inside of me. If I'm experiencing pain, it's an inside job. It belongs to me. there are tools, it's called forgiveness, with which to delete that pain, with which to remove that pain. So the first link is an explanation from the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And, of course, you are welcome to download the whole book. The second link is the actual 7-step reality management worksheet process. And then the third link is an MP3 of an earlier radio show that was done back in February with the young lady, who we walked through the forgiveness process. And so we invite you to pick up that tool. What's one, even the smallest little hostility, grievance, or fear that you have that you're willing to let go of? And if you're willing to let that loose, then you're in the process of removing war from planet Earth. And beyond that, Tim, are you with us today? Jeanie isn't on. We're out in the boonies here in the Ozarks, and her cell phone doesn't get reception. I have one that does, fortunately. We have two different cells. So.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how are you, Dr. Tim?
I'm doing quite well. I'm looking forward to hearing about the start of your intensive. Wasn't that today? Didn't we kick off today?
Actually, we kick off this evening. Dinner will be about 6 o'clock, and we'll do our opening session after dinner tonight.
Wow.
So I actually just finished mopping the Heart Center floor. We're just getting everything ready, and food set for dinner, and all systems moving forward. We've got a small crew this year, so.
Do you have Ari down there?
Ari is supposed to arrive, I believe, on Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, but he's not here yet. No.
Oh, all right.
Not yet, but he's on his way. Thursday or Friday is the projected arrival date.
So how are our friends from England doing?
Well, actually, that's an interesting question. Our friends from England showed up and stayed for 2 days and disappeared.
Aha!
With zero communication. So, when people come to Heartland, their stuff comes up, I guess. And if one doesn't use the tools, then stuff tends to move people away.
Well, we'll hold the space that it stirred up what it needed for them, and that they'll be healing and growing in their own way, whether it's back at Heartland or not.
Everybody in divine order, and we hold the space for that healing, yes, absolutely. So what's happening in your world? And I don't know whether David's with us today or not. David, are you there? I think he's working on some projects. We've got lots to do for people arriving. We'll have people showing up in about, probably 3 hours or so to get started.
Well, it's an exciting time. I remember from my 2 visits to Heartland so far that there's a flurry of activity that goes on to get things ready and get them launched. So I hold you all in the space of love and peace as you hurry through these times, and I know it's going to be a wonderful experience for those who are able to join you there.
Yeah, we're excited and delighted about what's coming together. Actually, just about everybody that's coming is actually doing not just the 9-day why, but actually the whole teacher training. So we'll end up with several new teachers coming out of the process, which is pretty cool. And all things moving forward.
That's very exciting.
So has anything exciting happened in your process or world with anybody you're working with in the realm of forgiveness?
Well, just my own work. I've had a series last week. My back pain flared up again, and I couldn't stand up straight, and it was a process of having my hip be out of alignment and a spasm in my psoas muscle. And I know from history that means fear is up in me at an unconscious level. And so I've had some intense work on myself over the past couple of weeks around that. And I'm standing much straighter and having dealt with some issues that erupted from NET process and worksheet process. It was a very different week last week because of the disruption in the electricity and the storms around here, and not having the group as a support process. But what it amounted to was that I surfaced fear about health in relationships and communication in relationships. And, of course, without too much surprise, when I got that awareness at a conscious level and then began communicating about it on a conscious level, the back pain went away. And so it quit spasming. So
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, it's very, very intense. And, of course, every time this happens, it adds to my knowing at a deeper level that each of the things that I find as a pain or a discomfort at a physical level must also have their roots in the mental, emotional, spiritual realm.
Right, precisely.
And so it motivates me to keep going in the process and doing the breathing and the worksheets and the tapping, whatever it can help me pass the blockages. But it was quite an eye-opener in the past couple weeks to see how something snuck up, and or, as you would say, because I had done the work and increased my vitality, that it was able to surface because now I have the vitality to deal with it.
Right. Fabulous. Well, I can certainly relate. You know, a lot of times people ask me, how did I get involved in this work? In the first year of my life, I was almost dead 2 or 3 times from lung problems, asthma, and I lived on an inhalator and pills, and I was told that was, you know, and my parents were told, they didn't know any better, that was what was going to take care of it. That was going to heal me. And after 25 or so years of that and living on an inhalator and pills, I was like, something wrong with this picture. This isn't working. And what I realized was that my body was becoming more and more toxic from the suppressive drugs that were being used to try to shut down what was going on in my body. And although my physician was an absolutely awesome woman, just a sweet, wonderful, caring woman, basically she fed me life-threatening drugs and presented to my parents that this was going to produce health. And, you know, of course somebody could jump in with your hip and back problem and offer you some pills that would certainly take care of the symptoms, you know, anesthetize you against the pain, and
or even surgery.
Or yes, even surgery, and leave you with who knows what going on. When real healthcare comes along, it's like, well, now I have to take care of myself on every level. The opening words in the book of John in the ancient Aramaic, and for those who are new to the show, we work with Aramaic ideas as primary here. In the opening words in John, doesn't say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. It says in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. Basically, we had a whole Greek philosophical system that put itself between us and the original Aramaic. In the Aramaic, they understood exactly what the mind did to the body. Mind energy becomes flesh. The physics lab is proving that to us now. But the Greeks came along and said, no, there's this thing called mind, and it's got something else it's other than body, and therefore the two have very little relationship. We don't pay attention to that thing called the mind very much unless we have a specialist who goes over and, you know, gives you pills to shut down parts of your brain. On and on and on goes the game. But when you start recognizing that real, true health care, you know, the cost of symptom suppression is all the wealth you can produce. You know, right now, you know, they talk about health care, but most of it's disease care. And we can't produce enough wealth to keep up with that technology in that game. Actual health care, priceless and free. It doesn't cost a thing, except the willingness to change yourself and to change your mind to acquire the skills to address the issues. So it's a process of awakening to what it is that we do to ourselves, and how most people, when they do that to themselves, always have somebody else to blame. It's always somebody else's fault. And so you've to recognize the wisdom within yourself and to honor that. You know, the double-blind study isn't everything it's cracked up to be. In fact, if you get to the truth of it, a double-blind study is not possible. Most people say, well, what do you mean a double-blind study is not possible? Well, let's listen to Einstein. Einstein says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. If separation is an optical delusion, to do a double-blind study, there have to be at least two. But there aren't two of us. There's only one of us. We're living in an optical delusion. So we're fooling ourselves when we talk about double-blind, and that's one of the ways that that a certain profession keeps people out of touch with their own wisdom and their own power and their own willingness to do what they need to do. So as you wake up to that, you have this power in you that can guide you and support you and show you how to clear up everything in your life that is unlike what your system, what your structure, your so-called body is designed for. And of course, that becomes a big question in a lot of people's lives. Well, what do you mean what my body wasn't designed for? Well, if you hold a newborn child, you know exactly what a human life is, and I would offer that's what your body's designed to live off of. That's what it's designed to live with as the active presence continuously. And so, if you opt for symptom suppression, you can't get enough of what you don't need in order to heal. When I was a kid, that became real clear to me as I grew into adulthood, and then I started to study naturopathic medicine, that my body didn't suffer from a lack of cortisone and inhalers. That was not the problem. And so that talking head on the commercial that you'll see, if you turn your television on, you'll see them, 100 times a day, telling you about the latest little pink pill, and then, of course, watching somebody dance through a field of daisies as they tell you about all the body parts that are going to fall off if you use it, to convince you actually it's a form of manipulation, manipulating regulatory images in the mind, so that things that are pretty bizarre become acceptable. And so as we wake up from that unconscious manipulation, a whole different game takes place. And the game is one of creating a life consciously with awareness and to bring the active presence of a human life into your structure. And so I definitely join you in that process of opening and healing. And I think I hear Jeanie's voice back there. You must have got your phone to work, Jeanie.
Actually, well, no, it's not my phone. It's David's phone. He happened to come over here, and he said he has to stay on task, so he gave me his phone.
Oh, nice. Thank you, David.
Yeah. So there is a person in the chat room, and she asked, I was on a lot of meds that I stopped taking a month or so ago. I'm looking for other ways of dealing with chronic pain and various other health dilemmas. Where can I find other ways?
Well, of course, the number of bodies of work that are out there are pretty much countless. One of the ones with whatever you choose to do, of course, I don't know what you're dealing with, but whatever it is, what I would suggest you start to do is forgiveness work. The number one interference, when you think about your body from a point of view, what they call the body, from the point of view of physics, another Einstein quote I love is the one where he says, on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy. Energy whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. So if there is no matter, there's no such thing as a body. Bodies don't exist. What exists? You have an energy system. And I would offer that relative to your energy system, there are only two qualities of energy. There's that which builds it up, strengthens it, that which tears it down and weakens it. And, it's like, if you've got your cell phone operating and some kind of a machine comes near the cell phone that carries an interference pattern, all kinds of noise and disease happen in the cell phone. Gee, I can't hear, there's this noise, and what's wrong with the phone? There's nothing wrong with the phone. There's an interfering frequency there. When we bring hostility and fear into human physiology, we create interfering frequencies. Forgiveness is how to go in and address and remove those things. So that would be, along with whatever else you choose to do, there are, physical, mental, emotional processes to do, but first and foremost, I'd start with the forgiveness work. And again, the worksheet, reality management, on the right-hand side of the homepage of the website, www.whyagain.com. There's a link that says download worksheets, and the first 3 links will give you keys to how to forgive. And literally what happens as you begin to forgive is you begin to access things that you've been hiding from yourself. And the way we hide things is by holding the breath and denying ownership of them. And that's what locks those very energies into tissue. And so as you can soften and let that loose, then those energies start to move out of tissue. And life becomes a whole different process.
So
and of course,
says that she had gone for blood work and wanted to see if the meds had damaged her body. So you want to address what medication does to the physical body, and possibly detoxing would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, you probably want someone who you're more connected to locally there that can guide you through the detoxification process, whatever it is that's been going on and what you've been doing. You might want some specific guidance, and I suggest connecting perhaps with a local naturopath, and or if you can find a good alternative physician, someone who's actually about healing and supporting people in healing rather than just giving them pills. And I don't know what area of the country you're in, but if you want to let us know, if I know of anybody, I'll certainly key you in with them. But I know that personally, I was talking about my lungs, and as I started to grow into adulthood, I was just handed these pills and this inhalator. I never went anywhere without them. And I personally finally came to the point where I realized that the millstones that had been passed along from my family system, the hostilities and fears that were passed along from my culture, I had taken them on because of my own ignorance, because of my not knowing, and that's where the problem was. I, came up in a culture. I was taught hostility and fear is the way you make your way in the world. That's just the way it is. That's how it works. And I'd offer that's how it doesn't work. That's the way to destroy yourself. But not knowing that, I just took on what the culture demonstrated, what my family system demonstrated for me, and there it is. There's one of the Beatitudes. We did a show a couple of weeks ago, actually 2 shows on the Beatitudes, and one of the Beatitudes speaks about those who are willing to, those who love truth and are willing to look into their errors in thought and the errors of their society. And what it promises as a result will be cured of mental stress. So the Beatitude actually that's classically interpreted is, blessed are they mourning their wrongs, for they will be comforted. In Aramaic, remember we put this whole Greek philosophy right between us and the original Aramaic, so not much of it, or a lot of it, gets washed out with this Greek philosophy. But the Beatitude that I'm referring to, that again usually says, or classically is translated as, blessed are they mourning their wrongs, for they will be comforted, actually more correctly says, a latent neural structure planted by the Creator to guide you to happiness and well-being becomes your conscious possession. You who love truth will look into your errors in thought and the errors of your society, for you will be cured of mental stress. And, in most medical circles these days, they're talking about 80, 90, 95, 98, some people, 100% of disease is caused by stress. You have to look into your errors in thought and the errors of your society, where the culture would program you of, well, you have this terrible disease, wear it like your red badge of courage, and, go to every organ recital that you can and recite your story. And, of course, the organ recital being where a group of people get together to talk about who had the last organ removed and who's getting the next organ removed, and, mine was the worst the doctor had ever seen. If we take on that identification, it can be a threat to have our diseases let loose. And as I say, for me personally, I finally came to the point where I realized that I bought into a lot from my family system and from my culture. And I can remember being a kid and looking around. How many of you are on the show can remember this? Looking around at the world and saying, this is not the way it's supposed to work. I can remember this. I remember one particular event. I was, probably, 5 or 6 by the time my father got a car. And I remember one of the first rides we took in the car, there was somebody broken down by the side of the road. And I can remember trying to figure out why we drove by that person and didn't help them. It didn't make sense to me. Like, what are we doing? Here's somebody that needs help. I couldn't fathom that. And I invite everybody on the show to think about this. Is there a time when you knew the world was not supposed to be about what it's about today? The fraud, the lies, the hostility, the fear. Actually, there's an interesting article that was published in a little local rag that comes out here in Theodosia, Missouri, and it's a story about the Florida court, the appeals court, over a Fox News anchor, or two people who were, actually a couple, who were hired by Fox News to do a story on bovine growth hormone. And the stuff they found out was horrendous. They found out the truth that had been hidden away about this just horrendous drug. It's one that's almost nowhere in the world approves of this bovine growth hormone that's given to cows to force them to produce more milk. Canada, the scientist who refused to approve it, they almost murdered him. They just threw him out of his job. Crazy. Europe won't touch it. And this couple was hired by Fox News to do some research, and they came up with some pretty damning evidence. And so they went to run the story, and Fox was all excited. And then a week later, they came back and they said, well, actually, we've got some Monsanto experts who are going to give you some statements that you need to make part of your report. And they said, no, we are not going to do that. We are going to report the truth of what we found. And Fox News fired them. This is a Tampa station. They fired this couple. And the couple sued them. And the woman won $450,000 in damages over having lost her job and what she was put through. It went to the appellate court, and the appellate court said, let's see if I can find it here in this article. It's just amazing. They unanimously agreed with what Fox News asserted, and that there is no rule against distorting or falsifying the news in the United States. Now, here's the no-spin zone who go to court, and their proclamation is there's no law against us lying in the news. And the court upholds them and takes away the award that the lower court gave to this woman for unjust dismissal and forcing her to lie. How crazy does the world get? And so we need to be willing, according to that beatitude, look into the errors of our society. What's going on? If we hide our heads in the sand and pretend there's nothing there, there's an old saying that says all it takes is for good people to do nothing, for evil to triumph. What do we need to look at? What do we need to deal with in our own lives? What have we bought into? I learned personally in my own healing process, and I haven't had, aside from a couple of tooth problems, I've taken an antibiotic for a very short period of time. In about 40 years, I haven't had a drug in my body. And the first 25 years of my life, I lived totally completely. I didn't go anywhere without an inhalator and pills. And they gave me every miracle drug. But I learned that to actually heal myself, I had to interview, from the perspective of truth, my own life, the lives of my family, and the assumptions of my culture. If you've bought into assumptions from a culture, from a church, from a family system that are not based in truth, there's a really easy way to tell if something's not based in truth. Does it involve hostility or fear? If it involves hostility or fear, it's a lie. It's not true. If it involves guilt, fault, and blame, it's not true. So you've got to start first order of business to interview your life from the perspective of truth. And you've got to choose to love truth more then you love the opinions of your own mind or the opinions of your culture. And once you do that, you start to put an end to the self-deception that just pervades our whole civilization. And, of course, more particularly, we have to deal with our own blockages. That becomes a key in the whole process. Traditional beliefs have convinced us that the mind and body are somehow separate and non-interactive. And to heal, it becomes imperative to understand the relationship between the two and bring correction. You and I need to learn how to heal any destructive energies that have entered your structure genetically or that you've bought into. And those energies are the things that destroy the human frame. Forgiveness is the key to removing them. So I would suggest a holistic approach, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, but make sure that you do the forgiveness work. That becomes key. The educational system that I went through, it did not prepare me to take on such an awesome responsibility as taking charge of my own health and questioning the so-called experts. But guess what? You're the expert on you. Nobody else is. And you have to do that. Jeanie, are there any other comments coming forward? Is that making sense to our listener?
The only other thing going on is that Joe is living in Reston, Virginia. Said he had visited Unity of Chantilly Sunday, but was wondering if there was anybody up in that Northern Virginia area that you knew of that was doing the work. And so Tim and I are putting it out there to start their own group, whether anybody else is out there or not. So that's just kind of the conversation going on in the chat room right now.
I'll tell you what, if you would send us an email with contact information, it seems to me in the back of my mind, I know there's somebody up in that direction that's working with the tools. And unfortunately, my database is down, so I can't look at this moment. But if you want to send us an email, we'll look and see what we can do to support.
I've already got it from them.
Awesome. Cool.
Talk about you can't forgive yourself when you're talking about doing the forgiveness work.
Yeah, we've been taught a totally false idea. Before I go to that thought, though, one of the other thoughts, and I don't know, what kind of things you're dealing with, how severe things are, but if you're at a stage where you just need to do some process work and step forward, we are getting ready to start an intensive, and you might want to look at jumping on an airplane. We're actually going to be heading to the airport on Wednesday night to pick a young lady up who's flying in from Peru, and so we're going to be making a trip. There's actually people coming from the airport today, but if you're ready to do some work and have some support, that might be a thing to do. So when we've been taught, I'm going to forgive you for the terrible thing you did. I'm going to forgive myself for the terrible thing I did. What I'm actually doing there is pardoning work. I let myself off the hook. I let you off the hook for what you did. And that's a nice thing to do, but that's not forgiveness. So once you understand, really truly understand forgiveness, you'll never forgive anyone ever again for anything. Please stop forgiving people. You'll never forgive yourself ever again for anything. Please never forgive yourself. If you make a mistake, pardon yourself, awesome. If somebody else is off-the-wall bizarre, pardon them, awesome. But be aware that what you're doing in that case is pardoning them. Now, the next step is, let's say that over this situation I'm involved in, I'm feeling a lot of fear and maybe guilt. So if I'm doing that, then I apply forgiveness to my fear. I apply forgiveness to my guilt to remove those disintegrative energies from whatever tissue they're stored in. Because if they're stored in the lung, we're going to suffer a lung dysfunction. If they're stored in the big toe, then there's going to be a problem with the big toe. The mind functions through every cell in the body. There is no separation between the body and the mind. It is one unit. And whenever you put a disintegrative energy in, The function of pain is to warn you what you're putting into your system. The function of pain is to say, look here, look what you just put in here. No, don't give me a pill to anesthetize me. I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to tell you what's going on here. And we've been taught not to listen to that voice. So one of the skills to be acquired in doing your own real healing work and forgiveness work is the willingness to start to listen to those inner messages that are trying to tell you what it is that you've been doing to yourself. And pain is a signal. Pain is the energy that results from holding on to a negative thought, and it comes from the part of the body where you're trying to stuff that energy in. You know, Dr. Tim was just sharing with us some very poignant situations where he's realizing, as he touches into some energy he's put into tissue, that tissue becomes kind of loud and makes lots of noise and gets your attention. And the word that doesn't mean don't deal with it or take care of it on a physical level. Absolutely do that. But at the same time, you want to find a way to go in and get in touch with what you've been hiding in that tissue. The reality management process, that worksheet we talked about on the website, that's the how-to for doing that. And basically, you know, the whole idea is let's get down to something that works. This isn't about lofty ideas. Wouldn't it all be nice and wonderful if we were all just loving with each other all the time? Wouldn't that be great? This is about confronting ourselves when we're not and how to move out of what doesn't belong. So there are theories, theories abound all over about disease, but who has answers beyond just masking the symptoms with poisons? That passes as healing in our culture. I'd offer 2,000 years ago, there was this fellow named Yeshua. He's a man who's popularly known as Jesus, but his name was not Jesus. That's Jesus is a Greek hailing of Zeus. It's Hail Zeus. That wasn't his name. His name was Yeshua. He was not a religious teacher. He taught physics. He taught physiology. He taught genetics. He taught psychology. And when you recognize from that ancient Aramaic that this was simply about taking responsibility and healing yourself, then you'll find there a set of awesome tools for how to work through whatever's been going on in your world, whatever's been going on in your life. And the main, number one tool that's been lost is that of forgiveness. So if you do something that you feel really badly about, oh, that's so terrible that I did that, again, you might pardon yourself, but you wouldn't be forgiving yourself in that situation. You'd be pardoning yourself. And then you'd start to apply that reality management worksheet process to that terrible feeling you have inside of you to remove it. So the idea is to remove what never belonged. And so what we're working to do with this work is to put into a usable format, really a 40-year study of the cause of health, of well-being, and how to thrive. And recognizing that there was knowledge that's been lost and hidden that supports and frees people from living diseased lives based in victimhood, blame, pain, trauma, war, disease, and poverty, and all the forms that it's got. And this is the real quest. The true quest of life is to learn that the cultural myth, the good guy kills the bad guy, is just a myth and it's insane. That the good guy, the one who's going to be healthy, maintains a condition of love 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what's going on in their world. They maintain a human life. And I'd offer that's the power supply that will fuel your cellular structure to stay in health. If we allow an energy that's less than that love to come forward, and instead of dealing with it, processing through it, forgiving it, we try to hide it from ourselves, we put away a fifth of scotch or whatever to try and anesthetize ourselves, you hold your breath, then you're locking energy into tissue where it does not belong. Forgiveness takes that energetic load off of the tissue. So an actual human life, I'd offer, is designed for something far more than this loveless toil that passes for life in our culture. The pursuit of money, sex, power, it's like that fills so many people's days, and that has nothing to do with life. That kind of a pursuit destroys us. In fact, the majority of first heart attacks happen on Monday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Now, is there a special poison that people take on Monday morning that accounts for this phenomenon? I'd offer absolutely there is. That poison is that people unknowingly give up their purpose and their human lives for money. And when you recognize that, you reclaim your human life and you stop the pursuits that everybody else says are really important, and you start moving in the direction of your own self-healing. Jeanie, any questions or thoughts?
We have a caller on the air, and it is Reverend Sophia from Nevada.
Well, hey there, young lady. How are things in Las Vegas? I bet they're hot.
Yes, they are, but beautiful day in paradise.
Awesome.
So we're doing well. Thank you very much. And this is my first time plugging into your radio show. A little late coming in, but it's all good.
Well, it's awesome that you're here. It's a delight to say hello to you and to connect. We certainly enjoyed our time out there. The time we had to play with the folks at Unity there in Las Vegas, and we are much appreciative of the fact that the support group is ongoing and people are continuing.
And they are doing great.
Awesome.
They are doing great. I checked in on them last Wednesday, and they continue to support each other and grow and thrive. So we're excited that we're able to host that and do the work, and we're looking forward to you coming back again.
Yes, we'll look forward to the next time we get back to be in that area of the world. It was pretty cool to have that extended stay on 2 occasions, and this winter is kind of unusual. Actually, it's the first time we've ever done that, and so it was pretty cool, and it worked really well.
Excellent. And I have a question for you. I came in as you were talking about it not being illegal to falsify the news, and I love that. We do have freedom of the press. But something caught my eye a few weeks ago, I think it was, in the news, and it had to do with, in one, I forget which city, teachers falsified the test results of their students so that they would have higher ratings for themselves of the students passing. And the news article said that, well, what do you expect if you're going? That in essence they were inferring that it was okay for the teachers to feel pressured to do that because they were being expected to perform at a certain level. And, of course, a lot of people last year, I think it was, maybe it's longer now, when we had a situation here in Las Vegas where a colonoscopy office had reused the needles for the procedure to save money. And no one ever reported it. No one ever blew a whistle on the practice, even though it was very dangerous and a lot of people were negatively impacted by it. So my question is, and let's go back to Yeshua, where do we find, go back to doing what's right regardless of the pressures around us?
Well, in the culture, the tendency is for most people to live in blockage of truth, no interest in truth whatsoever. And without love of truth, a lot of people talk about how they want to have a relationship with the Creator. There's an interesting story about the woman at the well. Yeshua meets this woman at the well, and in that society, he shouldn't even have been talking to her, but he strikes up this conversation, tells her a lot of things about herself, and then one of the things he gives her is, it's a different sect of Judaism that this woman belongs to, and he says to her, your problem is you don't know who you worship. And then he goes on to say that in order to have a relationship with God, that is love, you've got to worship in spirit, which is in Aramaic an actual elemental eternal force in us, to be in touch with that eternal force, and truth. If we don't love truth, if we love our own opinions more than the truth, then we're absolutely out of relationship with the Creator. And our whole society is based on, well, who cares about that? Who needs it? And in so doing, we give up our actual human lives. And so my take would be that the first order of business, and that's why in step 2 in the reality management worksheet, we have a first part of that step is, I choose to love truth and to go for truth first, because we live in a society that actually has an addiction, and the addiction is managing stress through blockage of truth. Well, if I don't look at it, then it won't stress me. And that's why, for instance, the story about John the Baptist, you remember he brought information to the king and queen that they were in blockage of truth of. When you bring in information forward that people don't want to look at, their stress level goes up. Most people's stress is hooked to attacking or getting rid of the source of the information instead of loving truth enough to go, wow, this is bringing stress up in me. I think I'll attach my stress to self-correction. So when we manage our lives through blockage of truth, we actually create a mind malfunction, and that is that we lose access to information. And so in order to rationalize, well, it's okay if teachers lie in order to make the scores look better so they get their merit pay, in order for a news organization that proclaims itself to have the no spin zone, I mean, it just shocked me to no end where this news organization actually says their whole defense was there's no rule against distorting and falsifying the news in the United States. And the Court of Appeals bought into that. Well, that's the epitome of blockage of truth. And so, to me, the first order of business is to love truth. And what we'll find is those high beings, if we look back through history, the high beings that most people would say, I would really like to emulate someone like that, and history records just the lives of a few of them, they're those who actually lived human lives, and they all spoke of truth. You look at Mahatma Gandhi, you look at Yeshua, and it's about truth. And until we can see the truth, we can't even know what our purpose is. We can't even function out of what we are designed to live as human beings. And that's what leads us into disease processes. Because the minute I block truth, I lock an energy somewhere in my tissue structure that's going to create distortion. It's going to create a problem there. So one of the first orders of business to me is to love truth. Does that kind of get in the direction of your question?
Yes, I just thought it's a wonderful conversation piece, and I think I'll check out that article that you mentioned for my next article in the local Enlightened Times. I think it's something people need to look at. So
absolutely, yeah.
I was letting you help me write my article.
The woman who had the award was Jane Akre, A-K-R-E. and it was Fox WTVT in Tampa Bay, the Fox station there, WTVT, Tampa Bay, Florida.
Okay. That'll be fun. Thank you.
Just to read, okay, just to give you a little more detail, it says the couple produced a 4-part series revealing that there were many health risks related to BGH, and that the Florida supermarket chains did a little to avoid selling milk from cows treated with this hormone, despite assuring customers otherwise. We actually have a health food store up in Ava, about 45 minutes from us here, and someone from the FDA, they had a sign in their front window saying they sold bovine growth hormone-free milk. And they came into the health food store and told her to get that sign out of there. They were going to be charging her just for letting people know what they carried. You can tell who's running the game here. So according to Aker and Wilson, that's the couple's name, the station initially was excited about the series, but within a week, Fox executives and their attorneys wanted the reporters to use statements from the Monsanto representatives that reporters knew were false and to make other revisions in the story that were in direct conflict with the facts. Fox editors forced them, and they refused, and so they were fired. I mean, it's just, oh my goodness. But that's what runs the culture now. I mean, if you look at, when was the last time you heard a politician that you even considered might actually do what they said they were going to do? The whole game is a joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, kudos for the couple for holding a standard.
Absolutely. Actually, reading that led me to reading some information. There's another article you might look at, and I think it's Corrupt. The name of the book is Corrupt to the Core, if I remember correctly. And it's written by the scientist, veterinarian scientist in Canada who worked for Health Canada. And he had the same problem. He refused to allow bovine growth hormone to be used in Canada. And Monsanto went after him tooth and nail, had him fired. He's written this book. I mean, there's some interesting stuff to look at there, too. I mean, this company has got such money and such power and such a revolving door in the pharmaceutical and the FDA. It's just crazy. But anyway, part of the game of life.
Michael, what is the citation for that article? Where do people look that up to read about that?
Which one, on the physician?
The one on the line of the newspaper.
The Fox News. Pardon me?
The Fox News one.
I would say I don't have an actual website. Oh, yes, I do. Excuse me. www.relfe.com/media_can_legally_lie.html. So it's www.relfe.com/media can lie with an underscore between each word .html.
Okay, that'll be fun.
Yep.
As the expression goes, that'll preach.
The general manager of WTVT in Tampa said this when the Court of Appeals upheld them. It says, it's a vindication for us. We were so very pleased. It's the case we've been trying to make for 2 years. She never had a legal claim. The media can legally lie.
Okay.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, young lady, say hello to everybody there for us, and we hold you in a blessing.
Sure will.
Look forward to when we get to Las Vegas. Lots of love.
Wonderful. And good talking to you too, Jeanie.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. So any other comments in the chat room, sweetie?
No, they were just asking for that link, and so that's all for right now.
Okay. Tim, you have any thoughts in this direction?
Well, I was the one who asked for the citation so I can look it up. I get a lot of people who give me pushback when I try to spread the word about the Brzezinski movie. I even had one attorney who argued and said, "I can't watch that. It's a one-sided, biased thing. I can't watch that." And after about 5 minutes of his arguing, I said, "Do you realize what you're saying? You're putting yourself out as being open-minded, and that's the reason you can't watch a documentary and make your own judgment about it. And so you're going to make your judgment ahead of time and call it, a conspiracy theory?"
Actually, if you send him to Brzezinski's website, brzezinskimovie.com, they have the opposing viewpoints, links to the opposing viewpoints on their site, too. It's not one-sided. They've got opposing views. There's actually a link with opposing views. There's an NBC, I think it was NBC, 60 Minutes or one of those type of shows did a thing on it. And you want to talk about one-sided, watch that one. They make it look like they reviewed all sides of the argument, but it's so biased it's not funny. I think they're pretty amazing, and send them to their website, and the opposing views are there. He's an attorney. He knows there's two sides to every story, and they give both sides right on their website.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do, and he finally agreed to take a movie and watch it. But that's been 3 weeks now, and I haven't heard from him. But the people who want to just discount it and say your government wouldn't do that, it's amazing the pushback. And so I love
what you're doing, Tim, is you're introducing truth to people who are in blockage of truth. Their stress goes through the roof, and you just watch, You watch their behaviors, and you know exactly what their power person did to them.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's the truth.
But as we keep opening and moving forward and loving truth more than our own opinions, things start to change. And, if you look down through history, there are just a few who rose to the life of an actual human, and each of these beings had their purpose. They knew their purpose, and they lived their purpose. It didn't matter whether it made them money or not or made them famous or anything else. They did what their purpose was. And, of course, I'm not speaking of heroes who do battle and, became expert killers and won great victories, taking land and possessions from the weaker and giving them to lustful kings who then honor them in medals on them on their fancy blues. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those who actually lived the human life, actually proclaimed truth, lived truth, and brought it forward to the world. It's not necessarily a popular thing. And what happens when we do proclaim and claim our human lives is that we become transformers of lives. That simply by being the presence of love and living as actual humans in spite of circumstances, we each become as powerful as the most powerful that have ever lived among us. If you listen to the most powerful, they said, the things I do, you too can do, and greater things than these can you do. You got to love truth first order of business. Are we willing to do that?
We only have about a minute left, but Bev Paul is on the line.
Yes. Well, actually, we're down to about 20 seconds, sweetie, before we have to do our outro. So if you would call us back tomorrow, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll look forward to speaking to you then. And in the meantime, we invite you to be about creating the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.